So there was a long list of recipe requests. It's hard to accommodate, honestly, because it goes across the board from like vegan to chocolate desserts to seafood. So over the next course of like the food demos, I'm gonna try to hit all the categories in some way. But I looked at the list, I was like, this is very extensive. And then I know there's people with nut allergies. I've done a lot of nut recipes to date, so these are all nut-free. So I'm gonna try to do more nut-free recipes as possible. So just things to think about.
Well, not to burden that list you already have going, but since we're talking about the Vitamix, if you have some diabetic-friendly recipes.
Oh, for the Vitamix?
Like smoothies or things like that. Because,
yeah.
Prior to pre-diabetic, I was using a lot of the fruits.
Yeah.
The fruit smoothies. So it'd be nice to have some
ideas.
Diabetic-friendly.
Yeah, as it gets warmer in the spring, we can definitely maybe try to think of some creative ways to do that. Yeah, sounds good. We still have like 5 minutes, so we'll give it a few more minutes. I'm sorry for the tuna section over here, if you're smelling. Canned tuna, the canned tuna section. All right.
Which canned tuna did you choose?
So I was not the grocery shopper. It's just, I did the list. It's just Starkist, like what was on sale. So nothing fancy. You could go fancier, obviously. There's lots of seafood selections. You could leave it out if you wanted to. Water and not oil. And actually, believe it or not, it's like a salad, so we're making an oil-based dressing. So if you did the tuna in oil, it would add a lot of extra. Yeah, but you can customize it. So most of these, all of these recipes are meat-free tonight. So we're focusing on fiber, obviously my favorite F word, fiber. I talk about it every class. And so we are going to talk about fiber from beans. But really, I just want you to get some ideas about how to make some homemade dressings and like some salads outside of the box that are not just like leafy green. So these could be main courses because they do have enough protein, but they can also be side dishes, which is probably how I would serve a lot of these. The only one that would not be the main course, although I could eat it as the main course, is the potato salad. But that's actually my favorite dressing of all of the ones we're going to showcase. It's like a Dijon dressing. It's very good, and you can probably use it in other types of recipes, and you could swap it out. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we're doing a lot with like fresh herbs. You can swap out for dried, but I highly encourage, if you are going to try to eat more beans, to just invest in like a fresh herb garden this spring, or maybe spend $1 and grab it, because it really elevates like the flavor of any type of canned bean salad. It makes it 1,000 times better. So I'll wait to get the cue. Do you think I should go ahead and get started? So the dill is mixed in here.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of dill. I was going to add more, and I probably could have added more. Yeah, but the dill is really good.
Yeah, potato salad.
Delicious.
Even a garden salad.
Yeah, I love dill. It's one of my favorites. You want me to get started?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, we're going to rock and roll here. All right, I think I recognize everybody, but my name's Allison Massey. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, and today we are focused on a couple different things. We're going to talk a lot about fiber, fresh herbs, and canned beans, which are economical, great plant-based source of protein, and just some different kind of salad recipes. So everybody has the recipes included in their packet. And this is just kind of an open discussion as usual. So we are going to kind of roll through the different recipes, talk about some of the ingredients and how we could modify it to make it kind of and customize it to your own. But yeah, feel free if you have any questions during the presentation, just feel free to ask. So I'm going to actually start over here with the lemony white bean quinoa salad. And the thing that you'll notice as we talk through some of the recipes tonight is that a lot of these are like oil-based dressings. And so many of us always just default for convenience to the bottled dressings at the grocery store, which I do it too if you catch me in the grocery store. But it is so simple to make your own dressing. So you can use these dressing recipes on all different types of salads that you make. My favorite, of course, is going to be the Dijon, which is a couple recipes down the road here. But this one uses just a simple kind of vinaigrette style recipe. And the interesting thing about this, which kind of is going to elevate the flavor, is we're going to want to marinate the beans and the vegetables in the oil, kind of garlic, onion mixture for a little while to give it a lot of flavor. So I'm going to whisk up the dressing, and then we're going to throw in the canned, I use butter beans for this recipe. You can swap these out for whatever you have. Butter beans is not one that I often have in my pantry. So I just kind of thought this was a good way to kind of try the butter beans. Oh, that's a fun ring. I like that one. So we're gonna, I'm just gonna throw the butter beans in here to kind of get started. You could also use like chickpeas would be very good in here. You could use like a white cannellini bean. And then I just have some chopped cucumber, some pepper, and some celery. So I'm going to throw that in here as well. So I probably should have whisked the dressing first. So we're going to do that in the small bowl. So the dressing is super simple. It's kind of going to be your basis when you're making dressings at home. We did use olive oil as kind of a heart-healthy choice. If that doesn't, fit in your budget, you could kind of use what you have on hand. But when it's on sale, definitely get kind of like the bigger bottle, and you can use it for so many different things. In the kitchen. So we're just going to start with our lemon juice, our olive oil, and I'm actually going to add. So I've got quite a bit of garlic. This is going to be pretty garlicky, and red onion, and I'm going to kind of mix all of that together, and then I'm going to add my spice blend. So, and I talk about adjusting the recipes as needed for your health conditions. There is a tiny bit of salt in this. If you wanted to exclude it, you could definitely do that. That we did kind of rinse and drain the beans, so that will kind of adjust the sodium content as well. So I'm just going to kind of whisk this up, and this you could adjust the ratios. So if it looks like you need, based on what's going on with your vegetables and your beans, if it looks like it needs a little bit more oil, you could add like a splash more olive oil, which I think I might, just so we make sure we have a good coating on here. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to marinate this while we kind of move on, and I'm going to come back to this recipe. So this is, super simple. Obviously, I had everything kind of pre-chopped and ready to go, but if you were to make this at home, like as a side, what I'd probably do is just go ahead and prep the dressing and let this sit while you're fixing your other side dishes. So I've got that kind of all tossed together, and if you didn't like, one of the vegetable choices on here, just adjust it. So if you don't like peppers, leave it out. If you like cucumbers, you could add double. You could definitely throw something like cherry tomatoes in here. If you wanted to kick up the citrus flavor, you could add more lemon juice, or like even a little bit of lemon zest if you really wanted to kind of enhance it a lot more. So we'll just let it sit for a little bit, and then we're just going to add our grain. So I used quinoa here, which we've talked about in other classes. This, we actually just use the quick cooking microwavable quinoa. So it does not always have to be kind of cook from scratch. You can use some of those convenience items so that you can kind of get dinner on the table faster if needed, or maybe you're just doing a small household kind of cooking recipe and you don't want to make a big batch. Because I find that, like, especially with a lot of, salad recipes that you find online that are grain-based, they can make a lot. And maybe you just want to make a small portion to kind of pack for lunch or eat as a side dish. So this was perfect. This recipe calls for about 1.5 cups of cooked quinoa. You could adjust that as needed, but this was just a single serve kind of microwave pack with nothing else added to it. So when I come back to this, I'm going to add the quinoa, and then that recipe's done. So that took about what, 5 minutes? Oh my goodness, I'm worried this class is only going to be 15 minutes long. But salads are super quick to prep. And I'm gonna actually add a little bit. I've got a zester. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of zest to it. Why not? So we'll make it very, very lemony, and it's right in here. So we'll add just a tiny bit of zest to our bean mixture here, and go that way. So does anybody, what are the beans that you normally keep in your house, for those that have beans at the house?
Black beans.
Black beans.
Navy beans.
Pinto. Okay, navy beans, things like that. Kidney beans. All right, those are common. So I don't hear a lot of butter beans. So lentils. Okay, lentils. Yeah, and you could.
Are they considered beans?
So.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's they're kind of, yeah, but this would be great. You could sub this out. That could actually be your base if you wanted to. Okay. This would be really good with lentils, and they're also small, like instead of the quinoa. Yeah, so you could do that, and that would be a good source of fiber and protein as well. So split peas are an excellent source. That, I don't know how that would taste with this flavor profile. So but I think the fun thing about cooking is that it doesn't always turn out, and that's okay. And you can just, make it differently the next time and play around with the recipe. So these are very customizable.
Is there any advantage of cooking your own beans, dried beans, as opposed to the convenience beans? Any advantage to that?
Yeah, so the advantage is obviously it's more cost effective because the dried bean bag makes a lot, right? It makes a ton. So it's very cost effective to use dried beans. Also, you don't have the salt factor there.
Right.
So, you're prepping them at home. As long as you have the time, it can save a lot of money and definitely cut back on the salt intake. So, yeah. So, and it's good. It's kind of a good pantry staple to kind of keep on hand. So we are going to, and you know what, I'll go ahead and add the quinoa, and then it's probably marinated for long enough, so let me grab a spoon and we'll just toss it all together. The other thing is if you're not a quinoa fan, you could sub this out and maybe use like a wild rice if you wanted to. I would probably make this with like a buckwheat grout, maybe. That would be really good. Or you could do something like sorghum. So some of those more kind of grains that are not as common maybe are interesting to try. And I always look for when they're on sale, and then I'll just buy a bag and keep it in the pantry, and then it's kind of an easy one to, add to a salad when you need something like last minute. So that's all there is to it. It's probably best, like the longer it marinates, obviously it'll enhance the flavors, but super, super, super simple and ready to go. All right, so we're gonna move on, and we're gonna do my favorite, thank you. So she's gonna work on getting the samples handed out. So this is my favorite. I actually made this for the Easter holiday, Dijon potato salad. It's a really good dressing recipe. So if you're not a potato salad fan or you're cutting back on potatoes, remember you can adjust it and use the dressing for anything really, salad-wise. So it's a really good dressing, but this is a really good side dish. And I think the thing I like about it is it has an interesting mix for the dressing. So obviously you need like a Dijon mustard, which is nice to keep on hand anyway because you can use that for marinades, you can make salad dressings with it. It adds a lot of extra flavor. So in my bowl, I already have kind of my mustard, my pepper, a little bit of salt, my garlic, and then I've got a red wine vinegar here, and I've got my olive oil, and then there's a little bit of apple cider vinegar. So I'm gonna just rinse this really quick, and we'll get this whisked up so that we can get the dressing going. I like to make this one and just use like a mason jar if you don't have, a fancy salad dressing shaker. And then you can kind of keep it and toss it on any salads that you might have for the week. So I'm just gonna put everything together, and then I'll just kind of get it whisked up.
Is there a reason that you use yellow potatoes? Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. So we just use, the baby potatoes are quick cooking. So you could do a mixture of like yellow and red. We did this though too, to leave the skin on for more fiber. So you just have to like wash and scrub them fairly well. But I do like to leave the skins on, and I find like with a bigger potato, the tendency is I usually tend to peel it, right? They take longer to cook. And these cook just a smidge longer than I wanted them to, so the texture is not like 100% my preference, but it's close. And then just add any, so we added, I added, the original recipe didn't have any extra vegetables, but I like to add kind of extra veggies. So you could add a cup or two of extra vegetables just to kind of enhance the nutritional value. So, you know, I just did celery and pepper. You could add whatever you like. So I got the dressing ready. And then I think the, all-star to this particular recipe is definitely the fresh herbs. So this is your cue. It's like beautiful weather to kind of get your gardens. Has anyone started their gardening yet? Any hands up? I know a few of you are gardeners. Yep, somebody started. So fresh herbs are worth growing. You don't have to buy them every time you go to the grocery store. You can grow them in a window. You don't need a ton of space. I think good staples to have on hand would be dill, parsley, cilantro, and basil. So you don't have to have, mint is good too, but that can really overtake the whole entire garden, as I see your head nodding and shaking yes. But those are good staples, and you can use them in all different types of recipes. So this recipe has dill in it, and I did do a little bit of parsley. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add that to our salad, and then kind of whisk up this dressing, and then we're going to kind of toss and assemble this. I have that in my pantry. So rice vinegar is also a nice option. It's a slightly different kind of flavor profile. These recipes, I tended to use most of the same vinegars just because they're staples most people have. So most of us do keep like a red or a white wine vinegar. Most of us have some type of oil, whether it's olive oil or another sort of oil. But yeah, rice vinegar is really nice, and you can use that in all different kinds of recipes too.
Balsamic's okay, or they have too much sugar?
I'm sorry?
Balsamic.
No, you could use balsamic vinegar. Yeah, absolutely. Yep, so you don't have to, that would be a good one too. All right, so let me just grab this spoon here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna toss. Does anyone else make like a Dijon dressing for their potatoes? Has anyone done that? Okay, so this will be fun to try. So like I said, I like this particular dressing. I think it's super flavorful, and then it's a nice mix with kind of that dill. So you could adjust the quantity here. And for those that are watching blood sugar, typically it's the kind of half a cup portion for any starchy side is kind of where I start with most people. It depends on like your diet and activity level and everything, but typically half a cup to no more than 1 cup max is kind of what I'm looking at when you're looking at that plate. And I passed out that plate method, so 50% kind of the non-starchy vegetable side. So this would fit right in kind of like your carbohydrate starch section. And it is a flavorful one. So I'm excited to kind of get some feedback. So that's all there is to the potato salad recipe, but I like it because it's very pretty too. So it has all of the kind of the colors and the flavors. Some people add, extra protein to this recipe, and they'll do like hard-boiled eggs. That would work with like the dressing, the flavor profile. So you could do that if you wanted to add additional protein to this recipe. So this one is ready to sample.
Adding the lemon zest really made this.
So what did you think about the butter beans?
I thought they were good.
Yeah? The butter beans were good. You make them at home. So they have a creamier kind of texture. Yeah, and cinnamon, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, so the lemon zest is an add-on, so you can make notes about that. But yeah, citrus zest, I think, is something we often forget about, but it's super good. I'm sorry? Yeah, so there's a little bit of red pepper. Yeah, so there's a little bit of heat in there, and a lot of garlic. So if you're not a huge garlic fan, you can take it down a notch. I mean, 3 cloves is pretty substantial, but you could adjust that as well. So, the thing I like about it, again, is just you can really take this as a base and make it your own. So switch out the grains. You can play around with the ratios of some of the ingredients. Add zest or don't add zest, just depending on kind of what you wanted to do. Lemon juice lemon juice as well. And when you look at kind of the ratio, they use 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So I did exactly the 2 tablespoons. I just added additional zest. But if I was going to make this like the night before, I'd probably just do like a quick squeeze of like fresh lemon on there. Or if I was packing it for lunch, I'd just like slice a little lemon and then I could squeeze it on right before. So super simple. You could also change the bean out, obviously, and do something more firm. If you did, butter beans kind of fall apart, so when you're mixing them together, so you could use something like a chickpea. Or really even throw like black beans in there, if that's what you had on hand. Okay, so moving on, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do Mediterranean-style tuna salad. So a lot of my patients ask me about the Mediterranean diet and what that really means and how I can eat a Mediterranean-style meal plan for cardiovascular health. So a Mediterranean-style diet, I tell people, is, even if you don't like Mediterranean recipes per se, you can take components of that dietary pattern and integrate them to your own kind of style of eating. So one of the things with Mediterranean eating is it is mostly kind of focused on white meat and seafood. So it would be mostly chicken, poultry, like turkey, and then seafood, right? So it's lower quantities of red meat. It is part of the diet, but it's much less frequent, right? The other thing, which is part of this recipe, is beans, at least 2 to 3 times a week. And one of the things I talk to a lot of people about that are working on improving their cholesterol or just trying to eat more for heart health is focusing on how they can eat more beans, because a lot of us love beans, but it's not a weekly part of our dietary pattern. And so how can we do that? I think summer salads are like the best way to integrate beans. In the winter and fall, of course, it's like chilies and soups and things of that nature. But summer salads are a fantastic way to make sure you're hitting your beans like 2 to 3 times a week minimum. The other thing is the nuts, which I've talked about a couple classes, is that usually nut consumption is pretty high. So that's like, at least 3 times to 4 times a week. Just remembering the quantity is about 1/4 cup. So thinking through some of these components, and I'm always challenging people, like what do you need to add more of to your eating pattern to enhance the nutritional quality? So sometimes it's not just about what we need to eat less of, but what we need to eat more of. And for most of us, that's eating a lot more plant foods, a lot more high fiber foods, and then some of those nutrient dense foods, things like beans, which are super economical. So with the Mediterranean tuna salad recipe, I already kind of threw some of my base ingredients in here just to kind of save on time. So I have, I did chickpeas for this recipe. Chickpeas are going to hold up pretty well just because they are firmer. If you didn't have chickpeas, just swap them out. I love feta cheese, so I was a little heavy-handed. This is probably a little bit more than like the recipe requires. And then I did do the fresh parsley because, again, anytime you have canned kind of ingredients, I think mixing it with a lot of fresh stuff really brightens it up quite a bit. So I've got kind of that basis, and then we're going to go ahead and add our vegetables. So this is just an entire pint of cherry tomatoes. In the summer, obviously, we've got a lot of fresh tomatoes. If you grow them in your garden, you could just use what you have and chop it up, obviously, or just buy something at the supermarket. I did a little bit of red onion, which is actually very good with tuna. So I did about like half of a red onion, and I tried to dice it pretty fine. So that's pretty heavy-handed on the onion. And then we've got our cucumbers and our peppers, which is part of the salad. So I've got all my veggies in, and then I'm going to kind of whisk up our dressing. So with that being said, let me go ahead and I'm just going to rinse this off quickly.
The only way I shy away from the herbs is about preparing them. How do you chop them up? And
Yeah, we'll talk
I'm
about.
shy away from that. So if you have any advice on that.
Yeah, we'll talk. That's why I have those bunches out there. We'll figure it out together. So there's techniques that are helpful, and we'll talk through.
Okay.
My technique's not perfect, but I'll tell you what I do at home, so we can kind of do that. All right, so I've got all our veggies in here. I haven't added the tuna quite yet. So now we're just going to make our dressing. The dressing is very similar to the dressing we made for salad number 1 with the butter beans. So we've got our olive oil. It's just a little bit of red wine vinegar, a little bit of lemon juice, and then we have our spice blend, which you all have on your paper. So it's just oregano, a little bit of salt and pepper, which you could adjust. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there. We're going to whisk this up, and then I'm going to throw that over the vegetables and our feta and everything. And sometimes, honestly, if I don't have, so a lot of times I might not have, I run out of oregano at my house all the time. So I'll just use like the Italian seasoning, blend and just sub out. So think about things that you would cook when you're cooking kind of like an Italian recipe, and you could add some of those different things that you normally would add. So, all right, so we've got our dressing in here, and then we're just going to toss this up. This recipe is kind of best served like the day of, I would say. And part of that, if you just left it like this, like with the vegetables and the chickpeas, this is going to hold up in your fridge for a while. Because you add the tuna to it, I would probably try to eat it that same day, or you could eat it the next day maybe. But it's not a good one to sit around for a long time, and it's just because of the consistency of the tuna. You could also do like a canned salmon in here would be really good. Do any of you buy canned salmon? Yeah, a few of you. So canned salmon, the interesting thing about canned salmon, if you've never bought it before, I know the first time I bought it and opened it up, I was like, what in the world is this? Because you see the little bones in there, right? And sometimes there's a little bit of skin and stuff that you have to scrape out. If you just mash those bones up, what a great source of calcium. So don't pick all of those out. That adds a lot of nutritional value. But salmon would be really good in this recipe. And sometimes I'll just, make it like this. But, we're going to add some extra protein and kind of make it a complete meal. And you know what? Does anyone have a seafood allergy? No? Okay. I'll just go ahead and make it as is then. So I'm going to throw a little, and I tried to drain this the best that I could. Before class started, we talked about you do want to kind of look for the salmon that is packed in water for this particular dish, if you can. And part of that is also because we did use like an oil-based dressing on here. So, okay, so I'm gonna leave this as is. You could, if you're a sardine lover, or you could try like all kinds of different canned seafood in here. You could use just like a little, one of those individual tuna packets if you wanted to do something like that. That would be really quick cooking. And so that's kind of it. So it's a nice alternative. You could even do this dressing maybe with a little bit of chopped vegetables in place of a mayonnaise-based dressing for your tuna fish. So a lot of times we'll default to like mayo-based. That's what I grew up on, right? A good old mayonnaise-based dressing with some celery on your tuna. So this is kind of a nice lighter in the sense of like heart healthy, kind of reducing a little bit of your saturated fat intake option. So this is all kind of mixed up and ready to go. So that's recipe number 3. So we're really rocking and rolling tonight. Yeah.
Is there a reason you use the dark tuna? You use the white tuna?
You could use the white tuna. So I think we kind of probably just bought what was on sale that day, like a lot of us do grocery shopping, right? So this was the light tuna packed in water. So yeah, get what you prefer and what you have on hand. But this will be recipe number 2. So we'll get 3. I mean 3. So now we're on 4. So we're going to talk about the fresh herbs and what to do there. Okay. So we've tried the quinoa salad, the potato salad. Yes. Okay.
I like the quinoa. I don't know if it's because it was first.
Yeah. Did you like it better than that?
I like that better than
The potato salad.
I think the Dijon was a little too strong for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you could adjust. It's a lot.
Absolutely.
It's a lot because it's 2.5 tablespoons, which is a pretty hefty portion. And you can use like
But I
half.
like the other flavorings.
So yeah, so that's what I would do. I would back off and just use probably a tablespoon of the Dijon, and then that way you could add all the other components. Or you could use a vinegar-based, like you could use the first dressing and put that on your potato salad and do that instead. Yeah, and the other thing too is like all of these taste better when they sit for a little bit. So we're making them right away, and then the flavors don't have as much time to marinate. Okay, last but not least, so this one is a little bit different of kind of a salad or a bean-based recipe. Part of it has to do with kind of the profile of some of the spices that we're using. And then the other thing about it is it doesn't have it's basically kind of like beans and tomatoes, and then we're using, nope, you're fine. And then we're using like our fresh herbs here with a little bit of feta, and then we've got our dressing. So it's very simple. I would probably use this definitely more as like a side dish, or you could serve this as like your main kind of protein, and then I would have some like leafy greens probably with this. So this is the chimichurri chickpea salad. So this does call for two cans of beans. Again, if you're a small household, I would just go ahead and cut it in half and just use 1 can, right? Instead of using the full pint of grape tomatoes, just use half of it. So kind of adjust it there. And then I'm gonna get my whisk here. So we're gonna whisk up our dressing. And I'm gonna put this just over here if it's okay. Can I rinse this real quick?
Absolutely.
So we'll rinse that off.
Done?
Yeah.
This isn't bothering you, is it?
No, yeah, you're fine. Okay. All right. So, okay, so I've got my beans over here. I did 2 different types of beans. So I did chickpeas, and I did the cannellini, just like the white beans, so that I had what was on hand. The grape tomatoes, again, are in there already. And then I have my olive oil, my vinegar, garlic in here. So I've got that kind of whisked up. And then I've got all my spices already kind of prepped and ready to go. So again, there's a little bit of red pepper flakes, a little bit of salt, cumin, so that's an addition, and then the oregano. So you can see a lot of these are repeat with like small adjustments. So we used oregano in the previous recipe. The only difference here is we're adding the cumin, and then instead we're adding parsley to this as well, and cilantro. So if you're not a parsley fan, leave that out. The cilantro is kind of probably like the all-star in this recipe though, but you could adjust it and use other sorts of things too. So that's that, and then we're gonna talk about how to deal with these fresh herbs, which are always tricky, even for me. So, okay, so I've got my dressing. I'm gonna kind of dress this so this can sit while we're talking about how to deal with the fresh herbs there. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this spoon. So we'll go ahead and toss this. Okay. I'm gonna throw in just a tiny bit of our feta. So when you have block cheese, So a lot of times when you're looking at recipes, it tells us, 2 ounces, 1 ounce. Many of us, when we're thinking about portions of cheese, we hear those like 4 little dice, right? So this is pretty close to like 2 ounces. All right. Cheese, it's really easy, particularly for me, to go really heavy-handed on the cheese. And cheese, you just need a little to add a lot of flavor. So I always prefer going with like a higher quality, sometimes even a higher fat cheese and just using less. And there's also a lot of good like non-dairy cheese options too. So for those that are kind of, avoiding dairy for whatever reason, you have a lot of choices on the market now. And I would just say kind of look at your choices and kind of go from there. I think some of the cashew-based, if you don't have a nut allergy, the cashew-based non-dairy cheeses are some of the better ones on the market. I don't know if anybody else, does anyone eat non-dairy cheese in here? Okay. Does he have like a particular non-dairy cheese that he likes? Do you know?
I don't remember the brand name. It's whatever they sell.
Yeah.
Sell it giant.
Sell it giant, probably like Dia or something like that. That's
Yeah.
a pretty popular one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it melts pretty well.
Yeah.
It doesn't look quite the same to us, but
Yeah.
he enjoys it.
That's the thing, if you don't know the difference.
he doesn't know the
Yeah, if you don't know the difference. Okay, so we've got our 2 ounces of feta. Now we're going to talk about how do we deal with the fresh herb situation. So before I tell you how I do it, does anyone have a way they like to do it that they would like to share?
A big sharp knife.
A big sharp knife is key.
You need a good sharp
Yeah, you definitely need a sharp knife. That's number one.
I get finicky and I take them off the stem.
Yes.
You don't have to.
No, you don't have to. Yeah, so sometimes, so obviously you want to, I think the hardest part is, you want to obviously wash everything ahead of time, which we've already done, which is why everything's wet. So to her point, a lot, depending on what I'm making, sometimes I'll cut the stems up in the recipe. Sometimes I pull the leaves off and then I'll chop from there. They do have like scissors out there as well. I don't know if any of you, have you used those?
Yeah, for smaller.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, the scissors work really well. If you don't, so they have specific scissors. The other thing too, it's always nice to have invest in a pair of culinary scissors if you don't have those. My kids are always trying to take my scissors for crafts because they're in that, and they are not supposed to do that. So it's just for food. But I have a little 4-year-old. She's always sneaking her hand up there. I'm like, those are not your scissors. Plus they're very sharp and big. But scissors also can be helpful. So with
Now, what do you do?
yeah, I just kind of snip them.
With
Yeah.
the scissors?
I just snip them. Really what you want, ideally you want a pretty sharp knife. So with this, again, I never kind of measure specifically. The stems are, a little bit on the thicker side here. So for something like this, I'm probably going to take a little bit of time to kind of pinch off the top pieces, and then I'm going to use a sharp knife to, chop them up finer. Sometimes I'll just, depending on the recipe, I just rip them and use my hands. But I think the scissors and probably a sharp knife are the way to go. The dill for the potato salad, I just chopped everything in there. So the stems are a little bit finer. I think parsley stems are a little bit on the firm side, but you can chop them right in there. So I've got my little pile here, and then I'm going to go ahead and just slice right through these and see how things turn out. And then I'm going to pull out some of the cilantro too. I feel like cilantro is, I kind of pull the cilantro off typically. You don't have to though, but I like to pull it off so I don't have too much stem in our recipe
I have
here.
a whisk rocker. Have you ever?
Yeah, I have one of those too. Those are great.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's it called? Well, the brand name is Fisk.
Yep.
But it's a rocker. It's like 2 round handles.
Yeah.
And you rock it back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah, those are, I have one that came with, does yours have like a base with the little bowl where you put?
No.
Okay, I'll have to bring mine into our next class and show you. Mine has like a little bowl base that you can put. That would be perfect. Actually, I wish I had it right now. It would work great. So this is why I try to chop stuff before you come in, because otherwise I'd be up here for hours. It would be a 4-hour class, me trying to figure out how to chop everything. So I'm just going to pull a little bit of this off, and then we'll.
While she's pulling basil, take the leaf and roll it.
Yes.
And then cut it.
Oh, my
Yep.
goodness, this is more work than I thought.
That chiffon cut there. Yeah, it's a little, so, you know, again, it doesn't have to be perfect though. So it's just kind of getting started. And I think finding, you know, what flavors you like is big. Parsley is probably my least favorite flavor, believe it or not, even though it's in every recipe tonight. I like dill a lot, and I like basil a lot, so I use those quite a bit. And then cilantro comes in handy, so I use that a lot in my kitchen. And I think it pairs like really well with like a lot of salads. Okay. So,
Parsley's a good neutralizer for your garlic.
yeah, that's what we'll hand it out before the end of the session here, right? So we all have it's like a breath mint, right? Chew it at the end. Chew it at the end. The other thing too is if you end up starting like a little herb garden, you can also use these different things, particularly mint and stuff, if you want to do some, you know, infuse some water with some different kind of flavors, like cucumber mint, lemon, or like a watermelon mint, or some people, you know, you can do all kinds of stuff to add a lot of extra. So that's kind of it. So I just kind of, you know, chop it. It's not pretty. Not pretty. So I'm not a professional chef, but that's kind of how I handle it at my house anyway. Or like I said, I'll use the shears, the scissors. So I'm just going to throw this in here, and we'll kind of.
No, it wasn't, but I'm dealing with arthritis in the hand, so I'm even giving
I
out
think-
the regular scissors and using electric. And
Yeah.
So
So how would you deal with that? So that's a great point. So you can, you know what though? You could do, they have the pastes now that you can buy that you would just squeeze out of the tube. Have you seen those in the grocery store? They're in the refrigerated section. So they've already done the work for you. So you would just use a squirt of the paste. So that's probably going to be better, especially if there's any like physical limitations to kind of chopping. That is probably what I would do, is do that, and then try that. And that way, you know, you can kind of enhance the flavor. And you can use dried, but I think if you can get a little bit of fresh in here with some of the other ingredients, it's going to taste a lot better.
Yeah.
Have you ever pulsed that stuff? I haven't, so that's why that might be something for her.
You could do, I guess you could do that. You could pull it off and stick it in. I don't see why not. Yeah, if you have like a tiny food processor or something, you could try that. I think the hard part is I would try to dry it a little bit more probably with like paper towels or you know, a kitchen tea towel or something, just because the wet's going to stick to the blades is what I'm thinking.
see that.
Yeah, so but
I
that's.
haven't done it, but I was just thinking since her.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Okay, so the goal I'm setting with a lot of the people that I'm working with is every class I talk about fiber. So how much fiber do we need a day for the ladies? Anybody? Yeah, so 20 to 25 grams. For gentlemen, it's 30 to 38 grams a day. Okay? So the fiber list that you have included in your packets, I want you to look at and think through your day and think through your meals. So one of the things is when we're focusing so much on eating low carb, I also find that people eat low fiber. So I'm always challenging them to think about what good carbs can we add back into our eating plan, because a lot of those foods are very nutrient rich, and if we're pairing them the right way, it helps a ton with blood sugar regulation. So don't be afraid of higher fiber carbohydrates. It's all about portion control and what you're pairing them with. So one of the things I tell people is break it down per meal. So if you eat 3 meals a day and your goal is to get 20 grams, you have to think about, what did I eat for breakfast?
I thought it was 25 per meal.
Oh, 25 grams of fiber per meal, then you would be eating a ton of fiber. No, 25 for the day. 25 grams of fiber for the day. So,
I might be thinking protein.
yeah, you probably are thinking more like protein. Yeah, so think through like what you had for breakfast. So like if I think about my breakfast, you know, I did have berries, so I got a little bit of fiber there, but I had yogurt instead of oatmeal, so that obviously doesn't have fiber. So just kind of thinking through, you know, where you're gonna make up the gaps, because it's extremely easy to go through the entire day without getting enough fiber. So, you know, be conscientious of it, and that's kind of your challenge from this class. So there's 2 challenges. One is think about your fiber, think about hitting, so for men, if you do 3 meals, that's like 10 grams of fiber a meal. You know, that's a lot. That's pretty substantial. And for ladies, it's a little bit less. You know, some people, obviously, you have to adjust that based on various, like, gastrointestinal, you know, conditions that you might be dealing with. But increase your fluid intake and increase your fiber. Look and see how that improves your eating habits. So think about what you need to add to your diet to make it more nutrient-rich and add more fiber. So this is kind of our last recipe to taste. So I'm going to go ahead and get this portioned out so that we have that, and you can kind of taste our last little recipe and see if you like this one. You got it? Thank you so much. You guys are great. So, I can eat that one afterwards. So we talked about, so everyone's got the fiber challenge, right? And the hydration challenge. You've got to do both of those at the same time. Otherwise, you're going to come back and complain about tummy troubles with increasing your fiber. So those are 2 things. So on the list that you have, I would say just kind of look at it, use it tonight and kind of check. And then think about over the next, finishing up the week, how many of those higher fiber foods you're including. And that way you can kind of see how far off. So I have a lot of people kind of track their fiber intake, usually for like 2 or 3 days. And it's a good way to make easy nutrition changes that are positive. And just take 3 days and kind of see, on average, how much fiber you're eating.
So question, the higher fiber carbohydrates, do they count towards total carbohydrates for the day?
They do.
They do.
So like green peas are a good example. So green peas are very high in fiber. But we get scared because they're starchy vegetables, right? But a cup of green peas is like 9 grams of fiber. So you just have to integrate that in with a balance of protein and then other low-starch vegetables. So you could start with half a cup, right, and get a decent amount of fiber, and then add some additional vegetables, you know, to that meal. That would probably get you another 2 to 3 grams of fiber. But
What's the goal for the carbohydrates?
so your carbohydrate goal is probably customized to your needs. So like general goals, though, that we often throw out. So like where I work at the clinic, we consider a smaller carb meal somewhere between 15 and 30 grams of carbohydrate. Medium would be 30 to 45 grams. And then a large carb meal would be like that 50 to 60 grams of carb. Okay, so for those that are carb counting, that are probably asking the questions, we count carbs in 15-gram increments. So 15 grams is kind of a single serving of carbohydrates. Yeah.
I read an article from a dietitian.
Uh-huh,
as well, and
yeah.
She uses, if you can kill it or grow it, eat it.
Oh.
So in other words, don't eat bread, don't have pastas.
Uh-huh.
Right?
So I don't know if I fully agree with that, but I think there's better ways to make certain things, you know. And I'm also all about enjoying food. So I do love pasta. So, you know, I think, you know, if you love those types of things, you can integrate it in a way that's healthy for you and for your health. And I think moderation is hard to define, obviously. But yeah, I think we do, most of us need to focus on, I think, you know, just what do we need to add more of to our diet, right? So if you eat more of the good stuff, it does fill you up. And then, you know, there's room for splurges here and there. But if you are focused on kind of like a high fiber diet, it is pretty filling. And then you naturally go towards foods that are nutrient rich, right? So then you don't have to use necessarily a blanketed kind of statement that you can't include. You're good? Okay.
You could throw the Kalamata olives in this.
Oh yeah, that would be really good. Yeah, with the beans. So the dressing, does it taste a lot different to you or very similar to the other? Because they're all kind of the basic, very similar, right? So even though the cumin,
Less red pepper in it though.
yeah, that one just had a tiny, tiny bit, and that one has cumin, but I don't think there's enough to really make the flavor you don't taste it. Yeah, yeah. So take the dressing you like the most, and I would use that one on most of your salads. And then you can kind of adjust like all of this fresh stuff depending on kind of what you like the most.
The Dijon salad was fantastic.
I know, I love that too. Yeah, it's not for everybody, but
And I like the deal, but I was thinking fresh tarragon instead would be.
yeah, that would be really good. Yeah, and I don't make a ton of stuff with tarragon, but tarragon's delicious, and that would be very good in that. Yeah, that's a good swap. Very good swap. So what other questions do you have this evening? Anything else? No?
Which side, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. That would be good with red potatoes. Yeah, we just had the white today. Yep.
That's fine, thank you.
New spoon.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it swallowed the fake. Like, do you need some water? Do you want some water? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everyone's got.
Yeah, we ran out of the tuna earlier, so she was sharing, that's why she was sharing hers.
To see.
People came later.
Yeah. So what was your favorite recipe then?
This is pretty good.
You like that one? Okay.
I like this one.
The best, it sounds like. Okay.
I have not tasted
Okay.
that yet.
What about in the back? Favorites? You like the potatoes? Okay. Potatoes, yeah. I like that one the best too.
I love potatoes, so that was a big hit.
I know. I love potatoes too.
Quinoa was very good too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love potatoes too. I think it's just a different way to kind of think about how you can include things. But I think the takeaway message is just kind of get creative and maybe start making some of your own dressings over the next week or two, because it is really very simple, and it just it also will save a few dollars because you already probably have a lot of those pantry staples, and then you don't have to buy like the pre-done salad dressings. So.
What's the best dressing of the ones we had tonight, we sampled tonight, or even another one, just to use with the regular, like romaine lettuce or just the lettuce salad?
I'd probably use like one of the vinaigrette dressings, like the actually the lemon dressing that we put over the white bean salad. If you're referring to the recipes, I would definitely put that over like a garden salad. That would be really good. And then the others are very similar. So if you compare them and the ingredients, it's just a matter of how much garlic you want to add. So like the lemon bean quinoa dressing is heavier on the garlic. So, but I think that would be good on a garden salad. I'd probably use this one, but you could use any of them really. I'd probably use the first one, and then I'd probably add the lemon zest to the dressing. Is probably what I would do, and that would be. I mean, a good salad doesn't need a whole lot of dressing up, but like a really good quality oil and vinegar is all you need. And some people just do like salt and pepper in that, and they won't even do like the garlic. Yep.
Something to dip my fork in that I don't feel like I'm being cheated, that I can get a taste of something.
Yeah.
That's not.
Well, the other thing too is I always tell people, remember the fat from the dressing helps you absorb the fat-soluble vitamins that you're getting from your salad. So we do need some healthy fat, and that's why different sources of healthy fat on your salad are beneficial. So it does help with that nutrient absorption piece. So that fat could come from like olives you put on your salad. It could come from like a tiny bit of like feta cheese, but like that olive oil is also going to help with that nutrient absorption. Avocado would be great. And actually, I didn't do that, but avocado dressings are very good. So I didn't do that tonight, but maybe we'll do that like next time. I like they have a dressing. It's called like a green goddess dressing. Have you got? You're shaking your head. So you've made that. It's just a lot of effort. I feel like because you need a lot of ingredients. But that's very flavorful too. Yeah, you need like lots of different herbs, and it's just a long list. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh, that tastes so delicious. But that looks like more work than I want to put in tonight. And the bottled ones are just not as good. So. The fresh is very good, but if you have like a special event or a special party, just look up like green goddess dressing, and it's a pretty tasty one.
And that's the ones that you can get a recipe for that, or no? It's at the
So they sell it bottled. I don't recommend buying it bottled because it's not the same at all. And but yeah, the ones I've had that are homemade are quite good. So I'll look up a recipe and see if I can pull one that would work for the group or the one that I've made very infrequently, but that's a good one too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are all these your recipes?
So they're not. So I source them. Some of them are very similar. Like I do a chickpea recipe that's pretty much almost like verbatim this Mediterranean tuna salad recipe. So some of them, the last time, some of those were my recipes. Some of these I get from, so there's a few good sites that I've mentioned before. So budgetbites.com is one that I recommend to a lot of my clients. The nice thing about Budget Bites is it actually prices out all the ingredients, so you know what the estimated cost is going to be. And I think I referenced that at the bottom. So the chickpea salad recipe was actually a Budget Bite recipe. So that's like an estimated, less than $1 per serving. And then the Mediterranean tuna salad, obviously there's some more expensive ingredients in this one, is like $1.32 per serving. That's estimated. The hard part about estimating the cost of ingredients is that you use it for a lot of different things, right? So if you buy a whole garlic bulb, you're using it for multiple recipes. So I like the help of this site because it does that part of the work for me. But yeah, they have a lot of very good recipes on there. And I'm trying to think at other classes. I've made a few of the other Budget Bite recipes, but I'd have to go back and look. So that's a good site. The Minimalist Baker website is also very good. I made one of her recipes last time. Her recipes turn out great almost every single time. I like those. And they also have a lot of customized. You can customize like the ingredients. You look up different things. If you're looking for completely vegetarian or vegan, that's on there. If you want just seafood recipes, that's on there. Obviously, the American Diabetes Association has diabetesfoodhub.org. That's a good website. It's called Diabetes Food Hub. So that's powered by the American Diabetes Association. Eatingwell.com is a favorite of mine. I love Eating Well, so that's a good one out there. Yeah, so it's a combination. So some of the recipes are mine, some are from other people that I use, or I make something very similar. But great questions. So we have our raffle, right? Oh, yay! Yay! So we get 2 raffles. 2 raffles. Jillian? Is it Jill?
I like that too.
Oh, good.
Why not?
Good. All right. Yay!
I will say, being that I'm older,
Yeah.
I have most of my energy. If you notice, I've been moving around like this. I'm
Yeah.
exhausted. Most of my energy in the morning.
Yeah.
These are great recipes to make in the morning.
Yes, because then they're ready to go.
Throughout the day, eat them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that way you don't have to cook a lot at night. Yeah, so I like to do stuff in the morning too. I'm much more of a morning person. So if I have the option to get stuff done in the morning, that's when I like to do it. And these are good, and they would taste better actually later because they would have more time to kind of marinate. So the flavors. But I appreciate everyone coming out and spending an hour of their evening with me. If you have questions, if you have topics that you want me to focus on in future classes, please let me know. And I would love to bring those ideas, to the next class.